what if being, perfectly average at your job is actually the absolute most dangerous career move you can make right now?
It's a really unsettling thought, especially since we've spent like the better part of the last century building our whole society around protecting the average worker.
Right, exactly. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. I am so glad you're joining us today.
Absolutely, it's great to be here.
And hey, before we really get going, take a quick second to hit subscribe on the BookSnap channel. It really helps us out, and make sure you never miss one of these deep dives.
Yeah, definitely subscribe to BookSnap.
So today we are tearing apart a vision of the future that honestly, it completely rewrites the rules of who survives the digital revolution.
It really does.
We're looking at the ideas of American economist Tyler Cowen. Specifically, we're drawing from Solomon L. Ocean's brilliant summary of Cowen's book, Average is Over.
Yeah, and the core thesis here, it isn't your typical sci-fi panic about robots causing mass unemployment.
Right. No Terminators here.
Exactly. It's about something far more insidious. It's about the total systematic disappearance of the middle class.
Which is just wild to think about. So our mission today is to map out exactly how this new economy works, identify the new social classes that are forming right under our noses, and figure out how you can avoid getting left behind.
And I think that's a much more grounded, realistic picture than we usually get, you know?
Oh, totally.
We are so conditioned to expect one of two extremes, like either a doom and gloom scenario where machines steal every single job, or, a utopian dream where AI does all the heavy lifting and we just enjoy universal wealth.
Right, sitting on the beach all day.
Exactly. But Cowen bypasses all of that. He basically argues that the jobs are going to stay, but the wealth, that's going to be hoarded by a very specific, highly adaptable type of worker.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can understand how to become that adaptable worker, we have to look at what is actively breaking in our current system.
Yeah, the old industrial model.
Right. It was fundamentally built for the average.
Yeah.
Like if you think about the 20th century economy, it was essentially graded on a curve.
Mm-hmm.
And you showed up, you had a standard education, general skills, did the work, and like a C grade got you a comfortable life. You got a mortgage, a pension.
Because the industrial machine needed reliable, interchangeable parts. I mean, a top-down hierarchy optimized for mass production doesn't actually want wild innovation from the assembly line.
Right, that just messes up the flow.
Exactly. It wants predictable, acceptable repetition. So the system actively protected the middle of the bell curve because that middle was the engine of the economy.
But human value isn't just a spreadsheet, right? Like, we've always argued that a good employee brings intangibles to the table.
Oh, for sure.
Morale, institutional knowledge, team cohesion, mentoring junior employees.
Yeah.
So how does that protective layer just disappear?
Well, it disappears because the fog of management is lifting.
What do you mean by that?
In the past, it was incredibly difficult to measure a knowledge worker's exact isolated contribution to a company's bottom line.
Okay.
Those intangibles acted as a buffer. Managers had to rely on broad estimations of a person's worth. But in the digital economy, businesses run on interconnected systems that measure individual performance with, honestly, ruthless accuracy.
Millisecond accuracy, basically.
Exactly. Whether you're a supply chain manager tracked by warehouse efficiency or a coder tracked by error rates, the algorithm knows exactly how long your tasks take.
Wow.
And it knows how much measurable value you generate compared to the person sitting right next to you.
So you really can't hide in the middle of the pack anymore.
Not at all.
If the system tracks productivity down to the keystroke, the whole concept of average stops looking like a baseline and starts looking like, well, active inefficiency.
And algorithmic systems are designed, first and foremost, to eliminate inefficiency.
Right.
They easily identify the absolute most productive workers in any given network, and they systematically reward them.
While leaving everyone else behind.
Exactly. They isolate, severely demote, or just automate the tasks of anyone operating below that optimal threshold. The safety net of being just good enough is totally gone.
Okay, so if the algorithms are tracking us and finding us inefficient, the natural assumption is that they'll just take the job entirely, right?
You would think so, yeah.
But Cowen argues the biggest impact of AI isn't substitution, it's integration.
Right. And what's fascinating here is that the cultural panic over AI often misses the mark entirely.
How so?
We tend to view artificial intelligence as a one-to-one replacement for a human being, like AI swaps in, human swaps out.
Right, the robot takes your desk.
Exactly. But machines and humans have wildly asymmetrical strengths. The machine is unparalleled at rapid calculation, sifting through oceans of historical data, finding complex statistical patterns.
Basically, the heavy cognitive lifting.
Right. But the machine lacks context. It lacks social judgment.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So an AI can analyze 10 years of consumer data and tell a marketing director that a highly controversial ad has a 14% higher probability of generating clicks on a Tuesday.
Okay.
But only the human can understand the cultural nuance of why it's controversial, you know?
Oh, right. Like, is this going to get us canceled?
Exactly. Only the human can evaluate whether acting on that probability will irreparably damage the brand's long-term reputation. We excel at context, empathy, and strategic creativity.
Okay, but push back for a second. If we have these perfectly complementary skills, why doesn't this integration just make everyone hyper-productive? Like, why is the middle class hollowing out instead of universally leveling up?
That's the core issue, because working successfully alongside an intelligent system requires an entirely distinct, high-level skill set, and it's not distributed equally.
Right.
The system only rewards people who know how to leverage the AI to augment their own output. If you can do that, your productivity skyrockets, your economic value becomes immense.
But if you can't?
If you can't, if you just try to do your job the exact same way you did it 5 years ago, your core skills are simply devalued.
Yeah.
The technology doesn't level the playing field. It acts as a massive magnifying glass that violently amplifies the differences in skill between workers.
Which brings up this concept from the source that I love, the algorithm manager.
Yes.
The nature of what makes a worker valuable has fundamentally changed. Like, you don't need to be a walking encyclopedia anymore, right? Memorizing case law or medical symptoms or market trends, it's practically useless because the machine has all of that instantly accessible.
Exactly. The new elite skill is knowing how to ask the smart system the exact right questions.
And then critically evaluate the answers it spits out.
Right. It shifts the economic premium from possessing information to directing it. You are essentially managing the machine's cognitive labor.
So, like, imagine a modern lawyer.
Right.
Instead of spending 80 hours manually reading contracts, they manage an AI that scans 10,000 contracts a minute.
Yes, exactly. And the lawyer's only job is to evaluate the 5 anomalies the AI flagged, applying their understanding of the client's actual risk tolerance.
Which means that lawyers' output is astronomical compared to a traditional attorney.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. We need to talk about the shift to what Cowen calls a star economy.
Oh, this part is crucial.
Because we have to unpack why the massive rewards of this hyperproductivity don't just spread out evenly. It's essentially, it's the difference between being a live theater actor and a film actor.
That is the perfect framework for understanding scalable value.
Right. Think about it. A live theater actor can be the most talented person on earth, sweating on stage every single night, delivering a brilliant performance.
But they're limited.
Exactly. They can only ever sell 500 tickets to the people physically sitting in that room. Their income has a hard physical ceiling.
Right.
But a film actor, they record the performance exactly once, and the technology distributes it to 1 billion screens worldwide.
The initial human effort is exactly the same.
Yes. But the technology scales the value infinitely. What AI and digital networks do is turn regular white-collar professions into film acting.
And the economic result of that infinite scaling is a winner-takes-most market.
Like sports.
Exactly. We're used to seeing this in professional sports or music, where a few superstars capture almost all the wealth, while thousands of incredibly talented people struggle in minor leagues.
Right.
Historically, a talented doctor could still only treat the patients who physically walked into their local clinic, you know?
Yeah, or a brilliant teacher was limited to the 30 kids sitting in their classroom.
But now, through digital platforms, diagnostic AI, remote networks, the absolute best doctor or the absolute best teacher can serve millions of people simultaneously.
And consumers will always choose the absolute best option if it's available globally at the click of a button.
Exactly. So the local average professional gets bypassed entirely. The superstar hoards the rewards.
Wow.
And this warped dynamic is giving birth to 3 very distinct, somewhat alarming new social classes.
Okay, break those down for us.
So the top tier is what Cowen calls the integrated elite. These are the algorithm managers we just talked about.
The people riding the wave.
Right. top-tier analysts, innovators, systems architects, they use AI to multiply their output infinitely because their value scales, their wealth, influence, and security compound rapidly.
Okay, so if the elite are scaling their cognitive value infinitely, who is actually maintaining the physical world?
That leaves a massive gap.
Right, which has to be filled by the second tier.
Exactly. That tier is the low-wage service providers.
Okay.
These are roles that require direct human-to-human interaction or navigating really unpredictable physical environments.
Like hospitality workers, physical caregivers, delivery drivers.
Yeah, because you can't digitally scale giving an elderly patient a bath.
No, you definitely can't.
Or making sure a complex hotel room is spotless. Robots still struggle immensely with fine motor skills in chaotic environments.
And they definitely can't replicate true human empathy.
Right, so these physical jobs are fiercely protected from automation. They survive.
But the pay is terrible.
Because the human effort remains strictly one-to-one. Like your theater actor analogy, the economic value cannot scale. The market dictates the pay remains incredibly low, even though the labor is essential.
Which leads to the third group, and honestly, this is where the picture gets incredibly bleak.
It really does.
The economically incapable. These are folks who lack the cognitive, digital skills required to join the integrated elite, and maybe lack the physical ability or opportunity for the service jobs.
They find themselves entirely marginalized. The system aggressively demands either highly scalable cognitive value or cheap physical labor.
So what happens to them?
This group ends up relying heavily on stretched government support structures or volatile task-based gig work just to barely tread water.
Wait, so the ultimate danger isn't that everyone is unemployed. It's that almost everyone is working, but the inequality is practically medieval.
Yes, the market no longer rewards hard effort. It only rewards scalable value.
That is just, wow, the middle class just evaporates.
It's extreme economic polarization.
Okay, moving from individual bank accounts to the broader world. How does this extreme inequality reshape the environments we live and learn in?
Well, let's start with education. Traditional schools focusing on memorization are totally obsolete.
Because knowledge is free online.
Exactly. Universities can no longer act as simple gatekeepers where a 4-year degree guarantees upward mobility. The market doesn't care about the credential anymore.
It cares about measurable output.
Right. The new required skills are data comprehension, critical thinking, and most importantly, continuous measurable specialization.
Because the machine updates every week.
Yes.
If your skill set is static, you are moving backward.
Yeah.
You have to constantly learn how to interpret new layers of complexity.
And this intense cognitive demand creates a profound geographical shift, too.
Yeah, let's talk about the map. Because you might assume that with everything digital, people can just work from anywhere, right? Spread out across the country.
But the reality is the exact opposite. Highly skilled workers, the integrated elite, they cluster together.
But why? Like, if I'm an algorithm manager, why do I need to live in a dense mega city with an insane cost of living? I could just use a remote connection from a cabin in the woods.
Because high-level innovation requires high-density cognitive networking.
Oh, like rubbing shoulders with other innovators.
Exactly. The elite need to be physically around each other to share informal knowledge, form specialized teams quickly, and access concentrated venture capital.
Which creates these hyper-dense megacities of immense wealth.
Right. But the dark side of this clustering is the rural drain. As the brightest problem solvers migrate to the urban hubs, remote areas suffer chronic economic stagnation.
The inequality gets drawn right onto the map.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the future of the government completely morphs.
How so?
Governments will basically become massive social support systems, and society might actually accept this massive inequality.
Wait, why wouldn't people riot? Historically, when inequality gets this extreme, society fractures.
Because while your relative wealth compared to the elite will be astronomically bad, your absolute material comfort will actually be quite high.
Oh, because tech makes production so cheap.
Exactly. The system will pacify the population with cheap digital goods, free automated services, and endless digital entertainment.
So what does this all mean for our sanity?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, historically, we've tied our self-worth to our jobs. If most people are working low-value jobs just to get by, while being distracted by cheap digital entertainment, how do we find meaning?
Being numbed by cheap dopamine doesn't replace the fundamental human need for purpose and mastery. Navigating that psychological fallout is going to be a massive struggle.
Okay, so after painting a frankly, somewhat intimidating picture.
Very intimidating.
Let's pivot to practical application.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this right now, how do you make sure you're on the right side of this divide?
The source material offers 5 actionable pieces of advice.
Lay them on us.
First, work with technology, not against it. Stop viewing AI as a competitor. If you try to compete with a machine on speed or data recall, you've already lost.
The ultimate goal is to become a complement to the machine, right?
Exactly. Second, focus heavily on measurable, productive skills. General knowledge is no longer a shield.
Because the algorithm is the new middle management.
Right. If your value can't be quantified by the system, it won't be rewarded. Third, develop the ability to make decisions in complex, data-heavy environments.
You have to be the captain, not the radar.
Beautifully put. The machines dump the data, you apply the context, and make the choice.
What's the fourth piece of advice?
Invest in building a strong digital professional reputation.
Oh, because the traditional paper resume is dead.
Completely dead. Your provable track record online is how you signal your value to the algorithms scanning for talent globally.
And the final one.
Embed yourself in powerful knowledge networks. The elite thrive on collaboration. You have to connect with other adaptable thinkers.
Because isolated workers are the easiest ones to bypass.
Exactly. This raises an important question, though. Cowen's book is really more of a social warning than just a tech forecast.
How do you mean?
The true challenge of the 21st century isn't a scarcity of resources. We'll have enough food and cheap entertainment. The challenge is navigating this extreme disparity in human value.
Right. So to cleanly summarize the journey we've been on today.
Yeah, let's bring it all together.
The digital revolution isn't here to wipe out jobs. It is here to wipe out the middle class.
Exactly.
We're moving from a world where average meant safety to a world where learning to dance with the algorithms is the absolute only way to thrive.
The safety net of mediocrity is just gone.
Now, to leave you with a final lingering thought to mull over.
Oh, I love these.
If our entire economic value in the future is based on our ability to act as the interpreter or the question asker for artificial intelligence.
Right, the algorithm managers.
What happens when the AI eventually learns how to ask the best questions all by itself?
Oh, wow.
Does today's integrated elite eventually become tomorrow's average?
That is a terrifying thought.
Something to think about, right? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Your curiosity and your commitment to staying ahead of the curve is what's going to keep you in that elite tier.
Definitely.
And remember, if you loved this conversation, please subscribe to BookSnap so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep adapting and keep asking the right questions.